After spending months dissecting every single player in the 2025 NFL Draft, we can finally narrow down who the 25 best prospects are. Stay tuned to find out which guys made our list and who landed at the top. Ryan, we've dropped all of our position ranking videos, and now it's time to culminate things before the 2025 NFL Draft with our consensus big board, culminating all of those visions for how we see these guys shaping up in this upcoming class, our projections, our beliefs on who the best guys are, all compiled into one fantastic video. Ryan, we've broken this up into two tiers, the top 25 guys that we have on our big board. Blue chip is tier one. The guys that we've talked about so far are players that we think have the potential to be immediate impact rookies, and maybe even more than that. In the next few years, going to become all pros, to be Pro Bowlers for spurts throughout their careers. And then we have tier two, which we're breaking up into two parts, which is plus starters, guys that are going to be really important for a team's success. There's not as many blue chip prospects as we usually see in a draft class, but man, there are a lot of great names that fit into this plus starter category. I'm going to start us off here with 25 through 17, Ryan. At number 25, we've got Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona, the wide receiver. Number 24, we've got Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Number 23, we've got Nick Scourton, the other edge rusher from Texas A&M. 22, Luther Burden from Missouri. 21, Armand Membu, offensive lineman from Missouri. 20, Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle from Texas. 19, Jahdae Barron, the safety / corner from Texas. 18, Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. And 17, Colston Loveland from Michigan as well. I realized that we unintentionally grouped a bunch of guys from the same schools back to back. I don't know how that happened, pure happenstance, but that's how our list ended up working.
We have a very interesting group here, Joe, to start. I think the one guy that people are going to look at immediately and say, well, I haven't really seen him in top 25s too much in the market otherwise. Nick Scourton, a guy that I am still betting on from Texas A&M. You know why I'm betting on him, Joe? Because he was down to 257 pounds at the combine after being bulked up to over 285 pounds this past year at Texas A&M. If you saw him at Purdue previously when he was one of the most athletic and dominant edge players in all of college football in 2023, it was at that 265, 260 pound weight. Now that he's back down to 257, I feel much better about projecting him forward and betting on those traits a little bit, because I do think that he's back at that playing weight. And I think when he's at that playing weight, he is a menace off the edge.
Yeah, he's one of these guys that we're a lot higher on than the general consensus, and I actually feel pretty confident about that. Sometimes you're higher on a player than everybody else, and you feel a little wonky. You're thinking to yourself, I don't know if this is really going to live up to that expectation. But Scourton, I'm betting on the effort, the motor, all of those things now that he's back down at a lower weight, especially his teammate Shamar Stewart too. I think both these guys are going to be tremendous prospects in the NFL once they move on from this Texas A&M program that's been a little shaky at producing quality guys over the last couple of years, despite having some amazing athletes. My attention goes to Jahdae Barron, though, who we didn't rank him super high amongst our corners. But I think that when we built this board and we reframed it, he to me is Brian Branch. He to me is one of the best just defensive backs in this draft class. And when we just put the label defensive back, I think it more accurately depicts how he is going to play in the NFL. Could he play outside corner? Absolutely. But I think defensive coordinators are going to see the limited length, but fantastic instincts and tackling ability and ball skills, and want to use him all over their defense to play in the slot, to play over top, to use him in so many different ways to confuse opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he is a Pro Bowl level player, potentially inside of the nickel, and I think that he has enough zone awareness and just general athleticism to play outside in a specific system. And I also think he could play safety, right? Like, this is one of the better tacklers and run support defensive backs in this class as well. So Jahdae Barron, I think it's a perfect way to say him. If we're grading him as a pure football player, he's going to rank higher than maybe just a one-off ranking at one particular spot, because this is a player that can just do so many different things, so many different alignments, and play so many different roles for a defense. So I do like that note there. This is an interesting one that I want to hit on before we get to our next group. Tetairoa McMillan is down the list a little bit comparatively to maybe where some people have him. Just kind of want to put this out in the universe, Joe, because some people are going to call us Tet McMillan haters, which is totally fine.
Well, we literally did a video that was basically hating on him, and everyone keeps commenting that we're hating on him. But yeah, sure. I mean, we are. I don't care. I don't care. If people want to classify us as Ted McMillan truthers is what we are. But if you want to count us as haters, then feel free to.
We have constantly mocked him in the first rounds and sometimes higher than where his 25th ranking here. And we ranked him as a top 25 overall football player in this class. The point being here, we don't hate Ted McMillan. We like Ted McMillan. We just think that there is a more specific role for Ted McMillan in an offense than maybe a couple other players potentially in this class. And I just don't think that he is this stellar wide receiver 1 prospect that we have seen in 4 of the last 5 years. Like, he's just not that type of player in my opinion, but he's going to be a high end number 2 at least, maybe a low end number 1, and be a good player on the NFL level. Just some context for why he is there at pick 25.
I had tweeted this out on Friday morning that one of the most frustrating parts about evaluating prospects is when you find a guy that you really like, that you think is a really good football player, and you feel like you've got a pretty realistic projection on where you should go. And then out of nowhere, there is just this slow buildup of overhype for that player, and then you feel like you're hating on him. And I feel like Ted McMillan, for me, fits that description exactly, because I think that he is, as a number 2 receiver, as a T. Higgins in an offense, who gets one-on-one matchups and just gets to boss up on guys in those contested areas that he thrives in. He is going to be a 1,000-yard receiver, I think, in the NFL. But if he is drafted by a team, just like N'Keal Harry was by the Patriots not long ago, and he was supposed to be the Patriots' number 1 option. He was supposed to blossom into this premier X receiver, and it didn't happen. I just think there's such a variance of outcomes with Ted McMillan if he doesn't end up with the right deployment and the right usage, because he is not great at creating separation, and he tends to win so consistently in contested spots compared to with his route running, with his feet, with his speed, all of those things. Staying in tier 2, but part 2 of tier 2 being plus starters, we have at number 16, Tyler Booker from Alabama, 15, Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami, 14, Michael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, 13, Jihad Camel, linebacker from Alabama, 12, Nick Emenwari, safety from South Carolina, 11, Siobhan Ravel, corner from ECU, 10, Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU, 9, Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State, and lastly, James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee. I feel like we should talk about Cam Ward here first and explain why he's going to get drafted so high despite fitting in the middle of this top 25 big board.
Well, it's because we're not injecting positional value into this conversation. These are raw grades. Yep. We're having the conversation in the consensus style of that vein, right? So Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 overall pick because he's the top 15-ish player in this class, and he plays the quarterback position, which is the most important position in all of sports, right? So I've been on the record. I am totally fine with Tennessee drafting Cam Ward number 1, taking that swing. Is it a little bit of a gamble? Is there some hit or miss to it, some boom or bust to it? Absolutely. But with risk, there is reward sometimes, right? And that guy is Cam Ward, I think, in this class. If there's a quarterback that ends up being a Pro Bowler and one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, I think it's going to be Cam Ward. You don't feel completely easy about it because there are some other really good players on the board for sure. But I do think that this kind of exemplifies that Cam Ward is a very good prospect in this class, but he is a guy that is going to vault up the board and be drafted number 1 by Tennessee because of the position that he plays.
Yeah, I think that just generally in a year where there's not a lot of good quarterback options for teams, when you have a quarterback who is fringe first round or just sneaking his way into the first round, which is where you and I both have him graded, that is enough to vault him up much higher. We've seen this, especially in the last 5 years. As long as that there is a feeling that said player can go on to become a quality starter, he deserves to be in that first round conversation. So he's going to go a lot higher than that. I think he's probably going to go the highest, obviously, out of anybody on this list compared to where we're placing him. But Cam Ward's talent is immense, and he could turn into a complete game changer if he ends up hitting. But there is some development that is going to need to occur. Why don't we talk about Siobhan Ravel Jr., though? Because we spoke on him in our corner rankings and how high we were on him. The injury might end up having him slotted a lot lower than this in the 2025 draft. But God, he is one of the rarest athletes that either of us have had the chance to evaluate at cornerback.
Yeah, and if he wasn't injured throughout the process, he was able to test, he was able to compete at one of the major All-Star games, I think we'd be talking about Ravel in a much different light. Obviously, just from a general consensus perspective, from the media side, from the public side, I think we'd be talking about this kid as a potential top 15 overall draft pick in this class. So yes, height, weight, speed, reminds me of Antonio Cromartie, brings a lot of tools to the table to be an elite cover man. Happy right here, Joe, that we were able to get James Pierce Jr., defensive end out of Tennessee, and then Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State, back to back there. It's very interesting because both players are going to go a little bit later in this class. But if squeaky clean off the field, and this goes more for Pierce than Simmons, even though there's some talk about that for Simmons as well, if squeaky clean and able to stay healthy, I think that they're going to end up being top 10 players in this class, respectively. Simmons is obviously the best blindside protector in this class, in my opinion, the best true left tackle, while Pierce is, if he hits and he hits his upside, you can have a conversation of who is a more talented overall player, him or Abdul Carter. I think he's at least in that conversation from just a pure talent perspective. So I'm still willing to take the gamble on him. But again, there is a little bit of a gamble that is associated there for sure.
Yeah, both those guys were also two players that were a lot higher on than just everybody generally. And I feel pretty comfortable with it as well. I think that James Pierce Jr., even though we've highlighted how there's some character concerns, we didn't do a character evaluation because we are not NFL scouts or general managers. We are media members. So we get to evaluate him based on the tape. And based on that, he's worthy of being a top 10 prospect in this class. And I see that immense potential, as well as Josh Simmons, who had amazing tape this year at tackle before he went down with an injury, and very similarly placed next to Will Campbell, who we all know is so technically refined. Ryan, let's move to tier one, our blue chip guys that we think are just so gifted, that have an ability to be franchise-altering players. Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, was a fringe player in this category. Number 6, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Number 5, Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Number 4, Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. Number 3, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. 2, Travis Hunter, the corner/wide receiver from Colorado. And then number 1, Abdul Carter, Penn State edge. Let's talk about Ashton Jeanty first, because the fact that we have a running back this high, I think some people might be raising their eyebrows, but if you think that that's too high, you have not watched Ashton Jeanty, my friend.
He is one of the easiest evaluations in this class. He's a little bit shorter back. That doesn't matter because running with the low center of gravity is a good thing, right? So he's a little over 5'8". He's 217 pounds, runs with great contact balance, really good in tight areas, can catch the football extremely well. He can pass protect. There just isn't much that Ashton Jeanty can't do on a football field, right? So people have kind of fought back against the running back conversation, but in this class that lacks a lot of true first-round players, just generally speaking, this is a true first-round player. This is a guy that you should draft in the top 10, potentially at least in the top 15, and you'll be very happy with your running back room for the next 5+ years. That's what Jeanty brings to the table, and that's why I was comfortable there, Joe, honestly. I think we have undervalued him for the running back position, similarly to how we have overthought a Mason Graham here, who comes in at number 3, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. I am just so okay with Mason Graham being in this spot. I know some people probably have him a little bit lower. I get some people's concerns to a degree, but when I look at him and I say about 6'3", played about 315, 320, great hand play, really good in tight spaces, absurd power. I just look at that kid and I'm like, that kid is at least going to be Christian Wilkins, at least going to be a high-level run defender who has some pop in the pass game at times. If he can now develop that pass rush arsenal and be a little bit let loose a little bit more, I think that we're talking about a perennial Pro Bowler on the next level.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I have been so enamored by Mason Graham, and it's been a little perplexing for me that I feel more people aren't saying that this guy could be an all-pro by year 2 or year 3. Like, he could be that problematic for offenses to have to deal with. He is the upside to be a great pass rusher. He has the floor to be a great run defender. Here's one that I think a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, whoa, how the heck do you have him this high? Malachi Starks. You and I both have been Malachi Starks supporters throughout this class. I think one, positional value is definitely dropping him in projections for the upcoming draft. Safeties just typically do not go that early unless you are an athletic freak like Nick Emenwari. And Starks didn't test crazy well. He didn't run a crazy fast 40. And for some reason, people felt vindicated in describing him as somebody who wasn't worthy of going in the top 20 because he ran in the 4.5s, which is unbelievably stupid. Malachi Starks, though, he has really rare instincts for a safety. And he's also got really rare coverage ability for a safety. I feel pretty confident in saying that he is this year's Kyle Hamilton. He is going to be this year's Kyle Hamilton in the sense that he is going to get underdrafted, and the results are going to be so great that so many people, when he's in the defensive rookie of the year conversation, we're going to be scratching, or you guys are going to be scratching your heads going, why didn't he go earlier? Well, if you listen to us, then you wouldn't be asking that question.
Yeah, I think he's special. I really do. I think he'd be one of the best safeties in the NFL within 2 years into his career. Like, I think he's that type of talent on the back end. When Georgia asked him to do what he's really good at, which is play from depth and be a ball hawk and utilize his vision, he's a tremendous player. They didn't utilize him as well in 2024. Asked him to play a lot more nickel. I think he could do it at times, but I look at that kid and I'm like, that kid is a true free safety type. Like, he needs to play from depth and make plays, read quarterback's eyes. That's his game. Last quick debate here, Joe. Abdul Carter, number 1. Yes. Travis Hunter, number 2. That's been a major question, right? Some people have had, hey, Travis Hunter, we've never seen anything like him. A guy that could be a top 10 pick at 2 different positions, rare athlete. Then others on the other side, which is the side that we align on right now, is Abdul Carter, top pass rusher. Yes, he might not be as rare, quote unquote, when you consider that Travis Hunter can do so many different things, but for the thing that he does and the thing that you're going to ask him to do, I align with Travis Hunter being 2 comparative to Abdul being number 1, because I think that Abdul Carter, 1, plays a position that is a little bit more valuable just in a vacuum. And 2, I think we need to remember we have not seen the best of Abdul Carter yet, right? Like, he's only been playing this position for 1 year. If you went to his tape and saw his 20 plus tackles for loss, 10 plus sacks in 2024 for Penn State, and were really excited about it, just now think about what he could be in 2025, 2026, 2027, when he gets more reps of true playing on the edge and off-ball linebacker early in his career. We are only scratching the surface of how good a player like Abdul Carter can be.
Yeah, we're not even close to seeing what he could end up becoming. His ceiling is so high, and I have a lot of faith that Abdul Carter, when it's all said and done, is going to go on to become the best prospect in this class. I have a lot of faith in Travis Hunter, too. He's one of my favorite players in this class, but him having 2 different positions is certainly a bonus, but also means he's going to be less impactful at either position because he's splitting time. I think that when we have that called into question, it might impact things a little bit for a guy that we know and believe is more of a sure thing to play edge and to be a 10-plus sack guy in the NFL. Folks, hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Comment below any players that you think that we missed, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so. We will talk to you guys later.